Morning, Heaven Bound family, and anyone who may be watching. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word on this Friday. It's the 28th of May, and we are now down to the 12th chapter of the book of Genesis, a well-known chapter because it is a transition. We're going from Noah and from Noah's descendants to Abraham. You remember we said yesterday that Abraham lived 292 years, was born 292 years after the flood. Noah lived a little over 300 years, and so if we go back and study genealogy, Abraham would have been 58 years old when Noah died. So very possibly Abraham would have known Noah. Also, Noah's son Shem actually lived a number of years after Abraham's death. And so very possibly he would have known both Noah and Shem. And as we said yesterday, no doubt this is where Abraham got his information about God, came to know God through the teachings of Noah and through the teachings of his son Shem there. For whatever reason or however it all came about, we find beginning in chapter 12 that God calls Abraham out of Ur of the Chaldees. Now, Abraham's father is living with him, and his brother's son, Lot, his nephew, and of course Sarah, his wife. And God tells him to get out of his homeland and away from his kinsmen. They will travel north up the Euphrates there to Haran, which is up there closer to Damascus. And they will stay there until Terah dies, Terah being the patriarch of the family, being the eldest. And not only that, but Terah seemed to be an idol worshiper. And so God will not take Abraham into Canaan until after his father dies there at Haran. Once he dies, Abraham is now 75 years old, and he will live to be 175, so he's got another 100 years to go. But once Terah dies, his father dies, then God is going to say to Abraham, okay, now then, I want you to go down. I'm going to give you the land of Canaan, and I'm going to give it to your seed after you. And this would have been quite a promise, since Abraham had no seed. He had no children. And we will find a couple of chapters down into Genesis when God promises to give him a son. There's something about Abraham here that that catches our attention. You'll notice here he's going to build 4 altars here in chapter 12 and chapter 13. If you notice in chapter 12, in verse 7, it says, "And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he," meaning Abraham, "there Abraham built an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him." So God will appear unto Abraham here in verse 7, and Abraham will build an altar. Now then, Abraham is at Shechem. He will go further south from Shechem. He will come to close to Bethel there, just west, I believe it is, of Bethel. And he will build another altar. If you notice in verse 8, it said, "And he removed from thence into a mountain on the east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east, and there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. This is the second altar he is going to build. Now then, when we go ahead and read further, because a famine comes upon the land, it's unfortunate that Abraham will kind of waver in faith here. And instead of letting God take care of him in Canaan, for God can take care of us even in a famine, as he demonstrated with Elijah. But Abraham goes down to Egypt. And as he's approaching Egypt, because Sarah is such a beautiful woman, he's afraid that the princes or the Pharaoh of Egypt will kill him in order to take his wife Sarah into their harem. And so Abraham makes a bargain with Sarah that she will say she's his sister. That's not totally wrong, for she is his half-sister. And in Egypt, the princes of Egypt and Pharaoh will look upon Sarah's beauty. They will bring Sarah into Pharaoh. And because of his desire to please Sarah's brother, Abraham, who he thinks is Sarah's brother, he is going to bestow wealth upon Abraham. But God, in order to protect his own, and we can see here, we don't have to connive, we don't have to lie, we don't have to be underhanded to know God's protection. God is able to preserve us as long as we have as God has a work for us to do. We are invincible, and we need not fear. But because Abraham has staggered in faith, God is going to move in Abraham and Sarah's behalf. He's going to bring plagues upon Egypt, and evidently he must speak to Pharaoh, for Pharaoh recognizes what the problem is. He calls Abraham in. Why did you lie to me? Take your wife and get out of the country. And Abraham is going to go back near where he was where he built the second altar, and he's going to build a third altar. If you look down here in chapter 13, it said, and Abraham went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. He's going to build a third altar. And in chapter 13, Abraham, and because Abraham has got so much cattle and camels and sheep and so forth, and Lot has gathered much out of his own, and the land can't contain them. And so Abraham, and we see the character of Abraham, and we see why God favored Abraham here in verse 8. It said, and Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. Lot, being selfish and greedy, is going to look out. He's going to see the watery plains there near Sodom and Gomorrah before God destroyed them. And he will choose the watery plains. Abraham will take the hill country. And in verse 12 it said that Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plains, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated, I'm in verse 14, from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art, northward, southward, eastward, westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed be numbered. Again, quite a promise concerning the fact that Abraham has no seed at this point. In verse 17, God is going to tell Abraham, arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And Abraham removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plains of Mamre, which is near Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. So here in chapter 12 and 13, Abraham is going to build 4 altars. Everywhere Abraham stops to lodge, he builds an altar. Is there any wonder that God chose Abraham? Abraham evidently was mentored well by Noah and by Shem. And so with the exception of his going down into Egypt, Abraham is an individual who loves the Lord and who walks with the Lord and who has a regular communing with the Lord through the altars that he builds. What an example Abraham is to us, and he'll be further examples for us and teach us other lessons as we go further. We'll stop here and we'll begin in chapter 14 there, and we'll learn some lessons from Abraham throughout the next few chapters, over at least to chapter 18 here of Genesis. Do as Abraham did. Commune often with the Lord. Everywhere you go, build an altar unto the Lord. And then take God at his word. When God makes you a promise, stand on it. And when you stand on it, my friend, God will fulfill it. Right now, we're expecting God to fulfill a promise that we're standing on. We'll see it fulfilled, I'm confident, come this Sunday. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, come out Sunday morning. We'll share it with you. And then Sunday night, we're going to have refreshments and fellowship and give God praise for fulfilling the promise. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word on this Friday morning. Go forth today. Bless someone as you get ready for this Memorial Day weekend, a long weekend. Be safe, especially if you're going to be on the water. But also, remember, take time to remember, Memorial Day is not just so we can have 3 days off. It's a time to remember the great sacrifice that the men and women have made down through the history of our great nation that allows us to enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. So take time out to remember them. Take time out Sunday to worship the Lord, and let God bless you and keep you safe. Have a wonderful Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend. Be blessed.